All right. So again, I'm Jolene Hendricks. I'm with the University of Minnesota Extension Pesticide Safety and Environmental Education Program. My program role is here is the program manager for the commercial and non-commercial program. So those are pesticide applicators that are for hire. However, our PSEE program does meet the needs of all licensed applicators, which would include producers. So those are our private applicators. And then we also serve as the general pesticide safety education component for pretty much all of Minnesota. And we're not the only ones out there doing it, but this is one of the tasks that we have been able to collaborate with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture on, and with UMash, which is the Upper Midwest Agricultural Safety and Health Center. Hope that's right, Carol. I have to say out each of the letters to make sure I get them right. And we did a couple of workshops earlier this year that covered the WPS, how to comply, and some respirator fit test train the trainers. And so offering these monthly webinars was a spinoff from those particular activities, and we're very excited to be able to continue these, and we will be continuing these into 2023 as well. So if you did miss any of our webinars, we will sort of recycle the program and offer those titles again starting in 2023. So thanks again for joining us. I do have an agenda for today, and like I said, at the end of the workshop today, or the webinar today, I will send out a thank you email. There is an evaluation link in that email that we appreciate all of your feedback. That helps us make this program stronger. There will also be a sort of a summary of our agenda today with some resources that we referenced. And if you have not provided your mailing address to us, and I know that some of you who attended the first couple of sessions, we didn't ask for that in the registration, but you're welcome to send us your email, or sorry, your mailing address, and we will be happy to send you a packet of print materials, which would include some of the resources that we're talking about today, in addition to some other things that we have stored in our office. And I forgot to mention in previous webinars that we do have some materials available in Spanish. And so if you desire like a how to comply manual, or some other assisting resources in Spanish, please let me know that in your request, and I can send you one that includes those as well. Today, we're going to be talking about central posting and record keeping. And central posting, we do have some posters that are available in alternative languages. I'm going to show you some of the resources there when we get into that section. So again, if you would like to access some of those in a particular language, you can let me know what your needs are, and we'll see what we have available for us. So let me jump right into today's agenda, which I had open, and I opened up too many windows and it disappeared on me. So there we are. All right, so again, we will be covering the how to comply with the central posting and record keeping today. And I'm going to share my screen for the how to comply manual. And if this is your first time joining us, I will show you the resources on where to access this digitally, because it is a free download for everybody. Again, if you requested a mailed copy or mailed resources, you will get a copy of this in the mail. And so this is our sort of template of everything that we need to know for how to comply with this federal regulation. So when we go down to the table of contents here, we're going to be focusing today on, in Chapter 2, the information displayed at a central location, which is what we often refer to as central posting. And then we'll also talk about the record keeping requirements for the pesticide application and hazard information. And I will touch on how commercial applicators have a role in both of these items as well, and what their responsibilities are. So in this manual, we'll jump down to page 24 to start with the central posting. And again, you can have this resource if you have it available to you in your hands. You can jump over to that page. Otherwise, you can refer to this screen for the central posting requirements. Here we go. So first, I'd like to know if you can use the chat box, how many of you are agricultural employers or you're working for the agricultural establishment? So if you are an agricultural employer or working for the establishment, so that's the grower, producer, establishment, if you just want to pop in and on the chat box and just let me know. All right. I'm employed by a grower. Great. You can send it to me or to everyone, whichever one you did, if you have those options. I forget how this is set up, but all right. And then if you would also like to indicate whether or not you are a commercial applicator or work for a commercial applicator outfit, you can throw that in the chat box as well. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm not going to read this to you word for word, but I am going to hit some of the highlights about central posting. So it says that agricultural employers must display certain information, and they describe it in this section, at a central location whenever any worker or handler that they employ is on their agricultural establishment, and within the past 30 days, a WPS labeled pesticide product has been applied, or a restricted entry interval for such pesticide has been in effect. So just a recap of the worker protection standard requirements, that 3 things must apply. It must be on an agricultural establishment that is for the production of a agricultural plant product. The product must be labeled with the WPS information, which is found in the agricultural use box. And then obviously that product must be applied. And in this case, it's a 30-day window. So if all 3 of those things are have been met, then you'll have to do the central posting at a central location. So what information must be displayed? So first of all, the pesticide safety information. And this can be a poster that's developed by, it says by EPA or an equivalent way of providing the pesticide safety concepts. And I'm going to show you what our current poster looks like. And then I have an example of a central posting site from a few years ago that has a different poster, but there is a sort of standard poster that you can use. It's not something that you have to create on your own. And it presents sort of the basic personal protective, protective ways for people to for the pesticide safety concepts. And then there's also pesticide application information that must also be included in this central area. And that would include the name of the pesticide applied, the active ingredients, the EPA registration number, the REI, which is the restricted entry interval, which you will find on the product label, the crop or the site that's treated, the location and description of the treated areas, and the date and time the application started and ended. And again, I'll show you what an example of some central posting locations look like, and you'll see how that particular establishment set theirs up, but there are multiple ways of meeting these needs. And then you must also include the hazard information, which is the copy of the safety data sheets for each of the pesticide products. And this is one that we find that many people have the label available, and they have the information from the pesticide label, and they might have the SDS, but those are generally, kept in some central location like an administrative office or main office, because they usually come with the product when it's ordered. But I'll give you some resources of where you can find those if you need to make additional copies. Of course, you can always reach out to the manufacturer for copies of the SDS for your products as well. Now, where must this information be displayed? So all of this information must be displayed at a central location on that establishment that's readily accessible at all times during normal work hours. And it can be easily seen and read by the workers and handlers. So again, workers are those that are not directly doing pesticide application work or working with pesticide equipment or cleaning empty jugs, things like that. The handlers are working directly with the pesticide product in some way, shape, or form, or the equipment. And so you can have two groups of people on the same site, but they both need to have access to this information. Oftentimes this is where like employees tend to congregate. So maybe there's a main entrance where they all enter, the work sites, or there is a break room, a lunch room, some sort of area where they tend to go to periodically through the day. It could also be in locker rooms or restrooms and things like that. So, but it has to be central and it has to be accessible to everybody. So if you pick some place that's only accessible to certain people, then you'll need to have an additional spot that everybody else can access this. Only pesticide safety information can be displayed at this particular site. And then in addition, you'll need to add some other information at some other sites. And I'm gonna let Gregorio talk a little bit about what that might look like when he does an inspection in just a minute. There are some side notes here. So it says that the new pesticide information that must be included as of 2017, so that's been some time ago, would include the crop or site that's treated along with the location and description of that area. And then again, the time and date of the pesticide application, when it started and ended, and not when it is to be applied. So it's the actual times, not just the estimate. Also, your SDS can be kept electronically. However, all of your workers and handlers still have to have access to that at all times. So they have to be, if you keep them on a computer or they're on a tablet or something, they have to be trained on how to access that information. And everybody would have to have equal access to that. Okay, so Gregorio, I'm going to give you just a moment to talk a little bit about central posting from the regulatory standpoint.
Yeah, for the central posting or posting on a central location, there are three sets of information that needs to be there. One, you mentioned it, is the pesticide safety information that usually that what we see is a poster of some sort. But also the firm or the business can uh, also work on provide information working on the on as long as all the required information it is there. And that required information, and you can find it as well in the how to comply manual. I believe page 23 might be there and gives you the specific points that must be addressed for the pesticides. Is that 20? Okay, the specific, there you go. All those points must be addressed for the pesticide safety information. Why go through all the designing a new a way to give this when the posters are readily available and they're free? Well, that's something for the firm to consider. But also in that central location, the 30-day pesticide application record must be displayed as well. And at the central location or central displayed is you mentioned the SDS safety data sheet for the pesticides that have been used for the past 30 days. They must be displayed there and ready available, free access to everybody during working hours. In addition, there is one more thing for the display of the pesticide safety information. I'm going to refer this as the poster. That simplifies the concept. That poster, pesticide safety information also must be displayed at the, the contamination stations. They are permanent. So you have a sink with running water, soap, disposable towels, and you have told your workers or the handlers that is a station that they can use to wash off to decontaminate. Then also the requirement is that somewhere there nearby a poster or pesticide safety information must be displayed. Also, there is another requirement, and these are for the mobile decontamination stations. And this is specifically as well for the pesticide safety information, the poster. If you have sites in which you use during the season mobile decontamination stations, then on those stations, the pesticide safety information must be displayed as well. Very important it is if those mobile decontamination stations are intended to service 11 workers or more, that's where the requirement must be met. If you have less workers servicing with that decontamination station, then it is not required to display the pesticide safety information. 11 workers or more is the cut of the number. So during the inspections, that's what we are looking at. We're looking at if there is that particular information that must be presented in a way that it can be conveyed and understand for the workers. If you have workers that speak another language, then they must be also provided in a different way, in a different language. You have only workers that speak English, then they must be conveyed in the same that they can understand. The pesticide safety information, it is well something that must be easy to read and to understand, and as well with the pesticide application record must be displayed for 30 days after the end of the application or of the REI. And that's after that, they need to be kept in file for 2 years. The same with the SDSs. This is yep. Any questions with that regard?
Feel free to put any questions in the chat box, and my next step is to show you what a central posting might look like, and that may or may not generate some additional questions. All right, so let's take a look at what an example of a central posting might look like. Let me shift some stuff around here. All right. Okay, so this is an example, and this is an older example of a central posting site. And so in this far left corner, you'll see this red and orange poster. That was the old version of the poster, the pesticide safety poster that Gregorio was talking about. I will show you what the current poster looks like, and where to access those, of course. So you can see here that they have this pesticide safety poster, and it's a little difficult to see in the photo, but at the very bottom of that poster, there's a section where the establishment writes in where the emergency information, so where the nearest hospital is, and who to contact in case of emergency. So that information gets written on the poster. And then you can see that they also have the HAZCOM warning key there so that individuals know what the different risks are for each of the components. And you can see a notebook that says safety data sheets. So this is where they keep all of the safety data sheets that for the products that they use. And that can be a long-term storage. So that it doesn't have to be only the products that are being used right at that time. If you have a suite of 25 products that are used, seasonally throughout a year, you can keep all of them in there. You don't have to remove them, but you would need to add to them if you should have additional products. But you could keep this as a long-term storage as long as it's easy to access. And from an educator standpoint, as long as it's in some sort of order that somebody could find that information relatively quickly. So alphabetical order or by date, or something that would make it easy for an individual to find the information that they need. On the right-hand side of this station, they have the current application records. They also have the spray schedule, and then they have this like Dropbox. So once the application record is, once the REI is expired, they take that down and they kind of retire it into that box. But you can see that they're always there for a certain length of time in case anybody needed to access it. So it's important to remember that even though an REI may be expired, so let's say the label had a restricted entry interval of 12 hours. And even though that has expired, you still have to keep the information for all applications that meet the requirements in this for 30 days. So 30 days worth of application records of products, 30 days of this information needs to be posted here at the central location, even if the REI is expired and no longer applicable. And then that's when Gregorio said that these records also need to be kept for 2 years because they have access, they need to have access to that information. There are some other things. Let me show you another example. I will stop share there and show you another.
May I jump here?
Yes,
Just
go ahead,
yeah,
Gregorio.
also with the pesticide safety information, the poster, there is a requirement to provide information at how to contact the regulatory agency for the pesticide in the state. And here in the state, the Department of Agriculture is the agency that has that jurisdiction. And so the information how to contact the Minnesota Department of Agriculture also needs to be displayed at the central location. Usually there is at a specific area in the poster where the grower can write down that information. I want to share my screen. Let's see if I
Oh,
can
let me
I can
stop
do
my
that.
share
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry. Yes.
That's okay.
Used to let's
Uh,
see. Let me know if we can see it. And right there, I'm trying to disable share.
there you go. You should be able to share.
Okay. So then I can show you what is the required. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, that is the specific information that must be displayed at with the poster as well. Minnesota Department of Agriculture, the address and the phone number. This phone number is our pesticide complaint line. So then there is that's what they can call and file a complaint. Okay.
Wonderful.
That also, yeah, that's also what we are looking at when we are conducting inspections, if they have this information there.
All right.
Okay,
Yes. Thank you.
so I'm going to stop sharing.
All right. So let me show you another example of a central posting location. This one looks a little bit different. So here they have their central posting location is combined with some of their other workplace information. And again, it's a little difficult in my photo to see, but all the way in the yellow framed case, all the way in the far bottom right corner is that same pesticide safety poster. This is the older version, the red and yellow one. And this is just a smaller version of that. And so we do have 2 different sizes that you can get for posters. There's this like 12 by 18-ish size, or it might be 18 by 24. And then there's the larger one that's like a 24 by 36. So we do have 2 different sizes of posters to accommodate your needs. And then those smaller ones are also great for the locations that Gregorio mentioned, such as the decontamination stations, because sometimes you don't have like a full wall to be able to put a large poster on. And here they did theirs a little bit differently. They have their clipboards there. They have the application information. And then they have the pesticide labels and the SDS sheets like following those on the behind the list. And then they also have this great map. And I'm going to stop sharing this and show you this map close up, what that looks like, maybe. All right, so what they did here was they have this set of maps, which is all the fields that they have on their property, and they're color coded based on the types of activities that occur. So this happened to be a growing establishment where some of the fields were for germinating plants, some were for clippings of plants, some were for seeds. So they had a lot of different things that went on, and they had different crops that went on. So they have those color coded, and then they have pins. And so they've marked their items with the pins if they have an REI in place. And then what you would find is if you were to go out into those particular fields at the entry points, you're going to see the signs that have the no entry sign, and I'll show you what those look like too. And then when the REI expires. So here a person at the central location can see which fields have REIs in place currently. And then when they would go out to the fields, then they would actually see the sign of no entry, no entering with the posted REI expiry time. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a visualization of what this might look like. And then I thought I saw a hand raised. Did somebody have a question or want to pop on? You can either just unmute yourself or you can type in the chat box. Nope. Okay. So let me show you where some of these resources are. The first place, we'll go here, a couple of different ways to get to these. So again, the pesticideresources.org, and this will be listed in the resource sheet that you get, is where you will find most of the WPS information, which includes the training materials and also includes the how to comply manual in English and Spanish. And then over here are the WPS posters and then flip charts. And remember, if you attended the first webinar, we talked about the fact that if you wanted to do training, or actually it was last month when we talked about training, you can use the videos, or you can use some PowerPoint presentations, or you can use some flip charts. And flip charts are exactly what they sound like. They're kind of posterish like flip books that you can take out in the field to do training where it's not like in an office setting or in a educational building or anything like that. You can do field training for WPS as well. So this is where you will find those items. And then if you click on WPS posters, this is the current poster. So it's obviously a lot different color than the bright orange and yellow. And this particular one is in English and in Spanish, but right here to the left in this list, you can see the different languages that are available. And so some of them are in the smaller version, the 11 by 17, and some are in the bigger version. And so those are your options as well. Now, you have a couple different ways that you can access these. One, you can download them directly and just print them yourself. Or send them to a printer and have them printed. Some of these we do have available in our office. I think mostly I have the Spanish and English in the large posters, but I have a lot of these other ones in the smaller posters available with limited number of copies, but I do have some. Or you can also go to the NEPSEC store, and I'm going to click on that site. And the NEPSEC store here, you can order direct from them. So this is where you can find the pesticide safety, the WPS resources, and then they have these other books as well. Let's see if we go down to posters. Here we go, bilingual WPS posters. And so here you can order either like just one poster, or if you have multiple sites that you would like to post on, I believe that they have, you can buy bulk packs. So yeah, so here I can choose whether I want a small or a large poster, whether I want it to be in English or Spanish, and then whether I want multiple posters here. And it it's just a shopping cart system, and you put it in your shopping cart and you can check out. So you don't have to be associated with any particular entity to order from this site. This is just the sort of the clearinghouse of where these materials are available, and they are all the same coloration and they are all formatted the same. Like I said earlier, they're just available in different languages if you want them to be. Okay, so any questions on the central posting? All right. So the other thing I just wanted to mention was about the safety data sheets. So the ideal location to access your safety data sheets is from the manufacturer itself. And those usually will come already, one will be provided with whatever shipment that you get. However, depending on how you buy your chemicals, if you go down to an agricultural dealer and you only buy maybe a 2.5 gallon jug, you may not get a safety data sheet with that automatically, because the manufacturer only packages one safety data sheet within whatever their unit of shipment is. And most manufacturers would put like 4 2.5 gallons in one box. So there'd only be one copy of the safety data sheet in that box. And so it may not automatically come to you, but you can usually ask the dealer for a copy of the SDS if you're physically going to a site, or if it is shipped to you, it will come with a copy of the SDS. Worst case scenario, if you need to access them from another source, you can go to the manufacturer's website, of course, that is the ideal location. But there is a site called cdms.net. I'm going to put that in the chat box, cdms.net. And you can access safety data sheets here online. You will need to know the product name and the exact EPA registration number of the product that you have. Now, the nice thing about safety data sheets is they are standardized. So as long as you have the product name and the EPA registration number matches, you can pull them from the website and keep those in your records. You cannot do this with pesticide labels, though. That is not acceptable. If you lose a pesticide label and you need a copy of it, or maybe the one on the container has been severely compromised, then you need to reach out to the manufacturer to get a replacement label, because labels can have some specifics language on there for states or for uses within certain regions. And then they oftentimes on the online they're just specimen labels. They're not the officially approved labels by the states. So you cannot use the pesticide labels that you find online unless the manufacturer has directed you to a particular site to access it. But you can use the SDS. So let me make sure that everyone can see the chat. cdms.net. Hopefully that comes through to everybody. Sorry, Danny, that if there's an issue there. Okay, perfect. And then, like I said, this will also be in the resource sheet that you receive at the end of the webinar. All right, so I'd like to spend a few moments talking about record keeping. So we talked a little bit about the central posting record keeping. I'm going to let Gregorio talk to you about the regulatory aspect of the information that we've presented with the central posting, related to central posting and the record keeping requirements there.
Okay, so I'm taking from here. You were mentioning that with the labels, and that just made me think in some of the inspections that we conduct, sometimes we still find that with the record keeping, the 30-day application record, the name of the product that is being written there is might not be the same, the one that they use. And this it happens sometimes because even the active ingredient might be the same, and the grower might have found a cheaper version or less expensive, or they change for some reason the supplier. that might be a different name, and they are still using the previous, the old name of the same active ingredient. Let's say they use for say for an example, instead of they were using Roundup, not like they use an example, they using Roundup, but the active ingredient is glyphosate. They changed to a different type of product, and instead of Roundup, it is kills all, or the name that is still active ingredient is glyphosate. The EPA registration number will be different. The the safety data sheet will be different because it comes from a different manufacturer. So all those some details that the grower must be to pay attention to it, because one thing leads to another, then to another, and some of those are just providing not accurate information, and the record must have accurate information so then can be used in an emergency situation. Uh, they need to provide that information to the clinic or to the physician. And what product do they use? Well, they use Roundup. Well, no, they use different one. What is the EPA rec number? Well, provide the EPA rec number of the wrong product when it should be another one. So then it leads to a different SDS for them to have any specific information they might require to get from that safety data sheet. So that is what the intent of having the accurate information and this 30-day application record is. So then, in case of an emergency, the information gets readily and the correct information gets to the person or the people that needs to know that. And sometimes we to find that that those the name, the EP reg number are not correct because they have changed a company, so they have changed products. That's is a word mentioned to keep an attention to that. Uh, Also, with the application records, there is that is very important as well. It is the start and end of the application, because the end is when it's going to give us when the restricted interval is going to expire. So some occasions we find only there is only one time uh, for the application, and it might be the start, might be the end. We don't know that, and the worker doesn't know that as well, and that's where the REIs might get uh, violated because the time it is not as it should be. More what it needs to be described and keep in this application record, so 30-day application record is important. The location, that the location is very important. So then the workers or any other person knows where that specific field or part of the greenhouse uh, was treated, and that's where the area it is effective. Sometimes it is only the east side of the field, this field, and then that information also must be provided. That even it is the location, but also description of what area was treated, and that will be the one they will be under the REI and the restrictions to enter. Uh, so just keep a close eye on that information that needs to be conveyed, very specific. Uh, for the SDS also, and this might be something that it is they also need to be in compliance with OSHA to have the safety data sheets. But often, well, it's not uncommon that we find the safety data sheets from 20 years ago. Maybe they are required to keep them, but not for us, for the worker protection standard, it must be the current, because they are revised, probably they are updated, and that must be the current SDS for that specific product. So also just check, go over all the SDS that you have there. If it is an MSDS, get rid of it. Those are no longer they're old. So that will give you a clue. I still have my MSDSs there on display. Nope, those no longer apply. Okay, that's keep that in mind.
Thanks, Gregorio. So I'm going to touch on two final points before we open it up to questions and answers. And the next one is about the commercial pesticide handler employer. So again, if you work for a commercial outfit that's doing work for producers, there is an information exchange requirement so that the grower can meet these requirements for what they need to post in this central posting location. And so let's take a look at that in the how to comply manual. This will be page, I believe it's 83. Yes, page 83 in the how to comply manual. Talks about this employer information exchange. So if you're the commercial outfit that's coming to do the work on an establishment, you have to provide information about that application so that the grower can do all of the necessary posting. A lot of times I know the reality of it is that the producer will just hire you as a contract, come out, deal with whatever weeds I have on my property. I'm leaving it up to you for product selection. And then you go out and you do the job and then you send them an invoice. And likely you'll send them, a description of what you did and where you did it. But under WPS, there are very specific requirements of information that you must provide. So you'll find this under the employer information exchange. And it tells you right here, the purpose of exchanging this information is to allow the agricultural employer the opportunity to inform their workers and handlers of the pesticide applications that are made, the restricted areas, and to record and display the appropriate information. So if they don't get that information from you, they aren't able to do the notifications as required. You'll find what this information has to be on the following page. So it has to include information before the application is made, as well as any updates after the application is made. And so ahead of time, they need to know what the specific location and the description of the area is, the date, start time, and estimated end time, the pesticide product name, EPA registration number, active ingredient, the REI, whether that pesticide product labeling requires posting, oral notification, or both. And so that information is found in this how to comply manual, but also on the product label. And then any other specific requirements on that label that would concern the protection of workers or other persons during or after the application. Now, following the application, then you need to verify the information and also provide some additional information. So again, verify the location, the exact locations that were met. Maybe you were charged with the responsibility of going out there to address two particular fields, but maybe the environmental conditions changed and you only got one of the fields done. That needs to be, relayed to them that was a change. They have to know when that application was officially ended, because that will affect the REI implementation time. So if you estimated you were going to be done at 2 p.m., but you were really done at 1 p.m., then the REI actually, starts earlier than anticipated, or vice versa. Maybe you didn't finish till 4 p.m. And so they have to make that change as well. And then, as Gregorio said, they also have to add the end time to their application records. And then again, the method of notification, and it is beneficial, although not specifically required, that you as the commercial applicator provide a copy of the label and the SDS of the product that you're using to ensure that they have the correct information. Again, there's no regulation that says you must provide that to them, but I think just best management practices would say if you're choosing a specific product, it might be best for the notification purposes and application records to include the specific labels of the products that you're using. The other item that I wanted to go over was, why do we need to know about this central, why do we have this central posting information, and what is all this about? So I'm sorry, I lost my page here. It should be right
Yeah,
here.
well, you're finding
Yeah,
the page.
go ahead.
Can I just make it just a comment here for the application records. When the grower or the farmers need to write or post the application information, it is within the 24 hours after the application ended. That's when it is required to post that application. So that is with the commercial applicators, it is important to provide that information. So then the grower can meet the requirement of posting that information within 24 hours over the application ended, providing that they have already notified the workers as well. An application is going to be happening.
Thanks, Gregorio. Yes, and you can find some of that additional information in the how to comply, whether it requires an oral, a posting, or both. And so let's circle back to, why do we even have this central posting area? Why are we making sure that this information's in multiple places and accessible at all times? And part of the change in this regulation in 2015 was had to do with accessibility of information and making sure that handlers and workers could access this information at any point in time, especially if they felt like they needed medical attention or that there was an exposure that they needed to be treated for. That's not the only reason, but that was sort of like one major concern. So what the regulation says is that the application and hazard information, so that's the SCS and the application records and everything, must be provided within a 2-year period. So that's where the 2-year record retention applies. And then once the information is requested, the establishment owner has 15 days to meet that request. So if a person were to request that they get the application record from September 20th of 2021 for this particular field, or all of the fields in question, the agricultural establishment has 15 days to meet that request, and they have to provide that basic information that was collected regarding the application and the hazard information. And so there's some other criteria here if it has to do with treating medical personnel or a designated representative. So again, some of our English as second language or non-English speakers may have a designated representative that can help translate and relay the information from the workers' needs to the agricultural establishment. And so there is a official designated representative writing that has to be made, but at that point in time, they do represent that particular person, and so any of the requests that are made through that designated representative must be replied. And go ahead, Gregorio.
Oh, yes, with this, with requesting information. Well, here in Minnesota, of course, this information, the application information, it is confidential as well as any other information that is related to the business, the conduct of the business is confidential. But being in this place there is for everybody to see, all the workers to have access to that during the 30-day application display, application record display during those 30 days. After that, when it is in the file and it is requested, the request must be specific for a particular application. And you mentioned there the day, this application that happened this day, this location. So it has to be specific. It is not, I want all the application records from, it happened at May to September. And that is not a valid request unless there is an investigation from the state. Also, for the designated representative, the designated representative must be designated in writing. That is one of the requirements in there. That the person that they are representing must provide in writing that is the representative, and the designated representative also, it is when requesting information, it is a specific information for a particular application to a date and location. That is those are restrictions that are built into the worker protection standard.
Great. Yes, thanks for the clarification there. Yes, and so, and again, if you have any other questions, you can go to the How to Comply manual, or you can contact Gregorio as the coordinator for clarification. If this were to happen to you, if you were to get a request for information and you're not sure what to provide, or if you have somebody who needs information and you're not sure the route to go about doing that. So we can certainly provide you additional guidance there. All right, so that was all that I had on the agenda for today to cover the central posting and record keeping requirements. I'd like to just spend the next few minutes entertaining any questions that anybody may have regarding these topics or topics from our previous webinars. And so I'll just open it up. You're welcome to unmute yourself, raise your hand, or add to the chat box.
I would like to share some information as well with my screen, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Let me
go ahead.
see. I got 3 screens right here going on, so I need to find where my cursor is. Okay, share screen right here. Okay, so share. Can you see it?
Yes. You might
Okay.
want to click that orange box and say got it, just so
Yeah.
it disappears.
Yep. That is it. Trying to get to there. To bouncing to one to another. Okay. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have to stop sharing, and I gotta move it to the other. No, I'm sorry. I don't want to waste your time. Cannot find my cursors on the third screen. But what it is the contact information for my contact information. That is, I can put them in the chat, and also my email address. If you have any questions, you can send me a message. You can give me a call. And if we also have here in the MDA posters available for if you need some, you can also request some. We still have a few that we can send to you free of cost as well. But I'm going to put that information in the chat because I cannot find how to share
Perfect.
it without.
Yes, and it will also be in I'll add it to the resource page that gets emailed to everybody, which I believe his information is already there, but I'll make sure it's there in case you have questions about that. And the packets that we're mailing out currently, I can tell you off the top of my head, they will at minimum contain the printed copy of the How to Comply manual. One of the smaller posters, it'll either be English or English Spanish. We also have these agricultural worker protection standard agricultural guides for the producers. It's like sort of like a small mini booklet of the regulations. And then we also have these great little publications called Protecting Yourself from Pesticide Exposure. And we have those in English. I do have some of those available in Spanish, and those are booklets that you would potentially give to your workers or handlers. It'll also include a magnet that talks about how to properly properly clean your pesticide laundry. And then we have a lanyard, and I feel like there's probably at least 5 or 6 other things in these packets that all support the WPS educational initiative. So great little packets. Again, you're welcome to send me a response email when I send out the follow-up for today's webinar that just provides your address. If you already provided that during the registration process, we'll be happy to send you the materials sometime in the next week or so. And if for some reason you've already requested those and you still haven't seen them, please let me know, because we want to make sure that everybody receives the materials as we have promised. So are there any additional questions at this time from anybody about any of the WPS material? All right, so I'm going to stop recording.